Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, and welcome to the Eve Universe Show's continued coverage of the CSM 17 with our interview with Drake Iddon. Iddon?
Yeah,
Iddon? Iddon.
Yeah.
All right,
so
awesome.
many people pronounce that incorrectly.
I almost was about to say Iddon, but you just told me that there wasn't a second I, so
I
you
believe
gave me
the first time you ever interviewed me over a year ago, that's the first time you said Idiom then Idon. I was like, yeah, let's just go with that.
Well, you know, because Eidolon is a thing.
It is actually.
Yeah.
But
all right. Well, either way, that's neither here nor there. How you doing today, man? First and foremost.
I'm good. Got back from a very hectic week of work with very little sleep and a lot of very short naps at night and during the day. So this is the calm down period of the week for me.
I'm not sure if all of the other interviewers would consider this the calm down time of their week, but I can appreciate that. So you and I have talked before, obviously, full disclosure, I guess. But when I came back and actually started the Eve Universe show properly, you were my first interview. And when we did that, I think I called you the most terrible person in Pochfin, the most evil person in Pochfin, I believe.
I believe the title was "Is this the most terrible person in Pochfin?"
Yeah. So I guess let's start with who are you and how's the last year been treating you then?
Well, as you said before, my name's Drake Iddon. I am primarily a Pochfin player. Been living there pretty much since the inception, besides a few breaks to go outside of the Triangle Space, do some events. Then I came back, and when I came back, I was invited to a court by a good friend of mine, the original Grand Seagull beta page, to just basically say there is a load of people here that don't want to PvP, and I want to make them PvP. So let's show them up by running rings around them in terrible maledictions, like terribly fit maledictions and interceptors. And we did that, and the drama it caused was end up defining Pochfin for a good 4 or 5 months, so including CSM candidates from last year that basically solely campaigned on we need to ban these people because I don't like them.
In a weird way, you were kind of on the ballot last year, almost in reverse, and if that's true, then I guess you, in a way, won because none of your opponents did. But no, so just to take it a step back, basically when Pochfin formed, obviously it has a lot of interest as a combat arena, as a logistical hub, but also it has these sites in there for pro Triglavians to run mostly, right? Yeah, the Eden Dreadnought sites where, because of the fact of the nature of how they spawn and everything, the people that were allowed, or that were inside, that were allowed to control the space and run the sites, were able to become fabulously wealthy. But of course, like with most PvE activities, in the process, they were using expensive equipment and being relatively risk adverse. And in comes you, where you and your group would somewhere between exploit and creatively use the mechanics that existed to ensure that
I like to use the term emergent content.
Yeah, well, I mean, I say exploit, but I mean that like in the classic, the real sense, right? Like there's a mechanic and you are exploiting what it does, right? Like not like in a cheating kind of way, but in a, command and conquer or a 4X kind of way, But any rate, the point is that you managed to ensure that if they were to run it, your people would get a cut of the pay, which A, made you fabulously wealthy, and B, eventually made it so that it almost wasn't even worth it to them because more people were leeching off of it than doing it, which ended up being a big problem. Hence, the most terrible person in Pochfin. I guess, first and foremost, what would you say to those people that would look at that time and say that we can't have somebody like you on the CSM because look at the kind of behavior that you participate in?
I believe what thing people didn't see was there was a communication between a lot of the Triglavian alliance leaders, our guys as well, which some people objected to, and the CSM and CCP from back then. And because Pochfin had a lot of problems back there, So it took 3 months for the observatory flashpoints, the ones that we were talking about, the ones that we were quote unquote stealing from. They just flat out weren't working for so long. And when they finally did get fixed, then in comes me and my 3 friends, and basically, and we challenged them to stop us, and they tried for a while, and some of them then went down a different path that I believe it didn't show them in their best light. I would say I don't think it showed us in our best light, because we egged them on a little bit because we knew we were getting under their skin. But that's how the game is played. But in those back rooms, we put together a document, and I was fighting hard to say there were a lot of super just bullshit ways of this, the way we're doing it, it's too easy to do, such as repairing a can and decloak it 10,000 kilometers. I was pushing hard. Get rid of all that crap. Make it so I can't be 10,000 kilometers away, super safe. And it takes, if you want to come and get me, all it does is waste your own time and your own ISK per hour. And make it actually risky for the people going in. They also shouldn't have been getting the same amount of payout. Those are things I was campaigning for. In the end, a lot of people were campaigning for, not so much campaigning, but in the back rooms, they were advocating for the incursion style payouts, which is what happened today. And another thing that happened on Sissy, which thankfully got fixed, because I believe Poshvin would have not died, but it would have been dead for a long time if this went through, because the end result of the incursion style payouts was the way lodges gain contribution in those sites. If you warp in and do the entire site yourself, it doesn't matter how much damage you do. If I'm in, it was a Logi frigate and then one other ship that could take damage, so like an assault frigate or another Logi frigate, you would generate so much more contribution that instead of getting say 8% of the payout or a bit less than that, you would get, the payout would be halved from 3.5 bill at optimal down to about 1.4 bill, and we would get the entire amount.
Wow.
Every single time. That's how bad it was. And I was screaming at, I think it was Elise, CCP Swift. I feel sorry for him. I was just like, you need to fix this before it goes out.
So is this, so it sounds like it's a case of 2 wrongs make a right, right? Like, in other words, like, you knew that the mechanics were clearly needed to be looked at, and you were bringing focus to that. But more importantly, you were using it against people who you feel were using the mechanics incorrectly in a different way. You know what I mean? Like,
they were doing it inefficiently. They weren't doing it incorrectly. We just felt that they shouldn't have a free pass, because back then no one really cared about Poshvin. It came out, the space was broken, people forgot about it. The people who didn't forget about it were mainly the lore groups, who were the quote unquote blue triangle in there, the varying clades and ourselves. And like, everyone kind of kept it quiet for a while because we were making good money, and why wouldn't we keep it to ourselves? But we weren't going to let them have a free ride, because we didn't feel that they felt entitled to the space because they had done the PvE for it. They didn't want to actively defend it. And we basically warned them, like, the gate standings were at best a stopgap. If people want to come in and get this money, they will. Unfortunately for them, and I did feel sorry for them, and I kind of agree with them that it should have been handled differently, was the standings on the gates being unlocked. I think it should have, at the most, been a slower rollout instead of just everything being open at once, because those alliances in there, they owned pretty much all the space. They had all the citadels and stuff, and they had some PvP experience, but they had no siege experience, no defending citadel experience, and they were just they set themselves up for time of hell. And like, I wouldn't put that on an enemy. It was funny at the time, but at the end of the day, why would you subject yourself to that?
Right. It's important to note that, like, Pochfin was never designed for there to be structures. Like, the question wasn't, should Pochfin have structures or not? It's, should CCP delete all of the structures that are there, or let us, over time destroy them? And I think, honestly, I personally feel that CCP made the right decision. How do you feel that the story of the structures and capitals too. We'll throw that in there. How's that played out?
Well, the capitals, I'm biased because I own quite a lot of them now. just because
Well, I mean,
every time they're up for sale, I take them. But
they'll
eventually all die. In theory, they would all die. Eventually, someone is stupid enough to undock them and put them on stream, like I do sometimes, but just to goad Pandemic Horde mainly. But CCP deleting them, that is completely anti-sandbox.
Right.
Like that is just a red line. They should not do that whatsoever.
What about allowing us to make more?
I don't think it should be. I think they should stick to the design goal. I think it's healthy enough as is. If it goes down to structure spam, then the resistances that Poshvin has to being owned by a singular block of people would probably not disappear, but it would get very, very low. And I really feel that those resistances are what has made Poshvin such a content-filled space, such a fun space for everyone. From Pandemic Hordes in there making loads of money, but they're also getting pretty much bullied even when they try and block people. People in there who understand the space more, have more experienced players, have a smaller but more focused and more effective fleet comp. They'll have great fights, and even if they don't have great fights, they'll kill loads of stuff, and they love that.
Right.
And I really feel that's something that needs to continue in Poshvin. Otherwise, it just becomes like any other space, except It would just be a way to teleport to Jita very easily from any point in the game, and it would be a crap haven.
One of the things I like about Pochvin is that it basically, more than anywhere else in the universe, in the cluster, it feels like you are like it is owned by the Triglavians. It is Triglavians' space. You either work for the Triglavians or you're an interloper, right? And if you work for the Triglavians, you do what they tell you to do, right? Like, the way to live in Pochvin is to do exactly as they instructed. The way to advance yourself is to do what they told you to do. The way you fight, the way you get resources, the way you build up your forces in Pochvin, like, the more you live and inhabit in Pochvin, the more you live the Triglavian way. You go native just naturally by living there. I've always thought it was a very exciting area of space as mechanics, as metaphor. You know what I mean? But
yeah, it's great how it's panned out that way, and I'm hesitant. I want CCP to expand on it, while at the same time I also want to expand everywhere else in New Eden.
Right.
Because a good example would be, as someone said in chat, Poshvin is a Neukis with Blackout and Gates. Blackout was insanely polarizing when it came out, because there was a huge stick of you shouldn't, like, you've lost all this intel that you've been used to if you're crabbing out in nullsec, and it's easier to hunt you, but you're still making the same income as before. So why not wait until it's safer? And
it's just objectively worse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you could then make a load more money, like have a huge golden carrot to get people out in space and funnel people into not over the thousands and thousands of nullsec systems, but maybe a few systems in each region, constellation, maybe, to at least funnel people to a specific point, and it takes time for them to clear the sites. And on one hand, there's a big risk there. You could lose your ships. It might not be expensive ships. You could just have really easy T1 battleships or an Ishtar or anything like that in a small fleet of maybe 3 to 5 people, but it pays out way more than a noms.
That's actually
the risk there.
So
that's an element, just a concept that makes Poshvin successful, that can be used elsewhere without making that elsewhere like Poshvin.
So would you say that Blackout would have been successful if they had combined it with, like, an event where the better sites was in nullsec? So that way, like, you want, like, in the same way that people go to lowsec to do the event sites because they're worth, like, hundreds of millions of ISK there, as opposed to highsec where they're 20. Like, during Blackout, they could have put event sites in there to encourage you to go into the more dangerous areas.
Well, unfortunately, they did do an event. The event was also there's drifters, and they could come and just instant kill you every single time.
That's
and
true.
They siege your stations. It's just like,
and
by the way, if you're living in Nullsec, guess what, fucker? It's going to be not fun times for you for the next few weeks.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But I agree. Like an event that could be a lot more profitable, where the risk is a lot higher. So in blackout areas. Just the way they did it in Blackout, it was a really cool idea to implement something that people had been asking for a while, but it was done in such a bad way that almost no party was satisfied with it. The people who lived out there weren't satisfied because suddenly they couldn't play their game. Some people don't, like, I personally don't understand why people would go out in Null and rat all day to get money, but like, it's their game. Even a sandbox, they can do what they want. That's the point of it. So we shouldn't be taking that away. We should be able to challenge them to get more money and to get them to come out of their box a little. Then when they come out of their box a little, they may find another group. They may find a different way of playing, which they'll find fun, which is how I came to love Podfrin, really.
Rather than shutting down a playstyle, they should be enticing them with better ones.
Exactly. And then on the flip side, the people that wanted that so they could hunt people more, suddenly everyone docked up because there was no, like, it was just too risky to undock. So suddenly their content gets shut down as well. So I'm sure some people were successful against people that undocked anyway and didn't notice, but for the most part, it seems to me that most people were unhappy with the way Blackout was implemented.
I think that's actually one of the most fair assessments of Blackout I've heard in a long time.
Well, it's just luckily I wasn't around for Blackout. I think if I was around, I would be very polarized. Like I would probably be in the same camp that everyone, like other people are. But like I think I benefited in the fact that I wasn't playing the game. I'd quit the game for a long 7-year hiatus while that came out.
So that's actually a good transition point. We'll probably return to Podfrin, I'm sure. But let's take a break, and because I was looking through your stuff and seeing that you actually have a lot of history that isn't involving Podfrin, and more importantly, you have some words in here that are very kind of suddenly relevant, such as Dust 514 and such. Tell us a little bit about your I guess 7 years ago or whatever, your first time playing EVE Online and what you were doing then.
Well, I quit EVE. I basically experienced not veteran, but I experienced burnout in EVE, and I quit and came back and quit and came back, and I eventually got to the point where I had a lot of sub time running out, and I used it I'd stay docked, and I'd undock every so often and go in PvP. Like I mentioned in the thread, I had some friends in Hydra Reloaded. We would AOX carriers, and I would use a sim that I really shouldn't have been using. Like I was Black Ops 2 with terrible support skills, and I was an idiot teenager, and they want me to run Logi in the sim, but it was fun. But for the most part, I just used it as a chat channel to speak to friends, and then eventually I had to go to uni, and I was burned out with EVE, and I had other stuff to do, so I'd left it there, because when you need to quit EVE, you have to go, essentially for cold turkey. So then I went to uni, and eventually they finally decided that they wanted to publish a shooter after many years of testing in behind closed doors. So as like you did, you went and bought a PS3. I went and bought a PS3 from some discount store with some spare money I had, because I wasn't I didn't have much money back then, but it was worth it. I played in the beta, as buggy and unbalanced as it was, like with the swarm launchers that you could dumbfire at your feet.
The beta was like one of the best times, though. Let's be frank. No,
the maps were good and it was chaotic, but like some of the stuff there, like, oh my god.
Then cameth the Nova Knife.
Oh, Nova Knives were fun. I loved when the Myofibril low slots came out, and I had a cloaky commando which had something like 1,000 melee damage, and I would stand in a doorway cloaked, and if people came up, I would just be like a bouncer. Now you can't come in. Bam. Just was like, the performance was absolutely terrible, and the meta exploited that. In Faction Warfare, you would have lag rooms, but everyone who was setting the lag rooms up had a specific type of SSD, mainly, I believe it was Seagate, because it could handle it slightly more efficiently than everyone else, and it would tank everyone else's FPS a lot more than it tanked yours, and you would use it to that advantage. But it was
I hadn't
buggy.
heard of that one.
It was buggy. The performance was bad. The aiming and the keyboard and mouse inputs were just terrible. But it was just under the core of that. It was Eve, but a shooter, and I loved that because I had a huge Halo background before I came to Eve, so I just loved the Eve customization on top of a Halo-esque, like say Time to Kill, for example.
So what would you say that you think about Not Nova, the latest iteration, and their continued development of it?
So this is where another part I'd actually worked with CCP in. I did try and run for the CPM 1 because CPM 0 was just
chosen
by CSM by CCP.
Yep.
And I ran for CPM. The problem is, at the time, I was working for the Electronic Sports League, and I was actively trying to poach to get some sort of like quote unquote esports using the faction warfare system. But I had an incentive with my bosses to try and basically get a bonus from it and get CCP to pay some money. So I said to CCP Logic Bro at the time, and will this disqualify him? He said, I'll check with legal, but it probably will. So I said, okay, I'll bow out because it's not fair to anyone else. And I continued, but I continued elsewhere. But I did have the advantage, the privilege to work alongside CCP Logic Bro. I got to sign an NDA long ago, which didn't really come to much, but I was super excited. And that was when the first time I'd heard Project Nova, which was before it was announced at FanFest. And it basically was everything that I wanted on PC. So suddenly, all these problems that are hamstringing Dust would, in theory, be solved by coming to PC. And I was so hyped. So the first time I went to FanFest was when they announced that. And unfortunately, because CCP had said they were always focusing on the PS3, a lot of the console players
were very mad.
They're furious. I don't blame them because they were told in no uncertain terms that we're always focused on PS3, not even the PS4, which was a huge.
Well, I remember
it was a faux pas by CCP.
It was very much like the FanFest now, right? Where there was a lot of buildup that the solution was coming, that just wait, Dust 514 players, we've got the hugest announcement for you. And then CCP Rouge goes on stage and it's like, we're coming to PC. And that actually ended up being called the Rouge Wedding because, I mean, that was like when Game of Thrones was big too.
I remember being in the back room with, do you remember CCP Scotsman?
I heard the name, but I never actually got a chance to talk to him or anything.
Great guy. I remember after the announcement of that, I was in the back room with him in like the tournament area when no one else was allowed in, just looking at the forums at people going mad, and we were like, wow, we weren't expecting this. We were replying to some of them, but it's just unfortunate. It's what would you say? Lost promise, lost I can't even think of the word.
Well, do you feel like they should be continuing to work on it like they are?
I don't know what they're doing now because obviously.
But do you think it's a worthwhile effort?
If they nail it down, yeah. I don't know what they're doing. And I want information, which is a big problem with CCP right now. No one knows what they're doing. They're not telling us. Like, come on.
That is the caveat of 2022, right? Like, if it's good.
It's just, how many times have they cancelled and changed this plan? It was Project Nova, which was Dust 514 PC.
Yeah.
Then it was Project Nova, the lobby shooter inside.
No, it was Legion. It was Legion, then Nova. Yeah. Yep. I actually just made a video. I made a video about all this. And what's interesting is because for the video, I had to lay out the timeline. And there's actually a really solid rhythm of every 2 years, the situation changes. They announced it in 2007. It goes into beta in 2009. It releases in 2011. They announced Legion in 2013. It shuts down in 2016. It's like Nova gets canceled in 2019 or 2018. Then the next one gets announced in 2020, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
One thing I hope for the announced, unannounced shooter, which, come on, Hitler, why just blue balls like that. But the one thing I hope they do is go back to the roots of what made Dust Eve like. They had the customization, the colors of the golden Omar suits, the sleek Galente like racer like scout suits, the
Right.
rugged industrial mid-star suits. They were amazing. I loved them. And then on the last iteration that they did, which was the Concord suits, fighting zombies, Sancha, on top of a Maelstrom, I believe it was, so they don't infect it and take it to Sancha. And it went from this great, like, not grimdark, but it was grimdark, but it was also stylized. And then suddenly it was every other shooter that they've looked at on Twitch that's popular, and they were like, "Oh, let's do that."
In my
and
opinion,
it was such a letdown.
The whole point of an Eve shooter is that to add the intimacy of like being there on the ground, first person, being able to experience the universe on a whole nother level than we get to as spaceship pilots. If we don't get that, then why are we doing this, right? Mm-hmm. So having it be very generic and whatnot, and not like, if it's not showing me something about the Eve universe, which, as you pointed out, like the different races are very different culturally. They've actually been showing this off quite a bit recently, which gives me hope. You know, I think that that's really the biggest strength for it. But I fear that you are not running for the CPM today. So we're gonna rein this back in and go back to space hell. You mentioned earlier that you were flying a Sin poorly. I have reason to believe that while your habit in spaceship choices haven't differed much, your piloting maybe have. You've gone from the most terrible person in Pochfin to the most terrifying person in Pochfin. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do nowadays?
Well, thankfully, due to the resources that Pochfin has provided me, as the Triangle always provides to the very best of Zoya's
glorification of the fit.
Footman. Yeah, pretty much. Had a load of money to spend, and I decided I really loved Tyrannuses. It was the king of frigates atop the testosterone throne. You would go in with 2 props, 1 scram, 400 DPS, and no tank, and you would just go in, and I'd love that. So I bought out Jita of Tyrannuses.
I remember you saying that. Oh my god!
And I was basically said to myself, I'm going to use loads. Then I used a few of them, and then loads of them are just dotted around space now, and I still got a few thousand in Jita. A lot of them fit up, but I realized that I love the speed. So then I went to things like Vagabonds and Munins. I spent a lot of time in the Flycatcher because it was still very fast and also hit very hard and was reasonably tanky. And then eventually I went back into Blops, mainly to in events to hunt people, just because it was chill. You could kick back, have a drink, have some food. Someone appears, you kill them. But then eventually I decided I really want the Panther. And I know it can go fast, so let's see what I can do with it. And initially, it was a bump Panther. It would go 10 kilometers a second, cloaked. And I would bump orcas off grid in high sec and then steal their drones.
Oh my god. Yeah, so
Black Ops... that was the original inception of this Panther, because this Panther has been alive that long.
So the Black Ops battleship has this unique thing where it can't warp cloaked, but it actually gets faster while cloaked if you play your cards right.
Yeah.
So can I pull up the picture that you sent me of your Panther with the kill marks?
Yeah.
Okay. Just
it's probably outdated by now.
Yeah. I'm sure, but like it gets the point across, I think. So all right.
We've got a lot more than that now.
Yeah. So
we're in the big leagues now.
So basically, this is what you do. You roam around Pochfin and you make it very dangerous for people. Is that pretty much?
Yeah,
the short of it.
I decided let's make it like an Artie Wolf, because Artie Wolves are fast and they hit really hard. Let's just make that so it's just terrifying. So this thing is, it's overtuned, but just to give some examples, uncloaked it goes 4 kilometers a second. It's arty fit and it does 1,000 DPS, and it has huge alpha behind that. It's not that tanky, but its mobility more than makes up for that, and it's got a like quite a disgusting amount of tracking for Arty.
Right.
I generally run it when I undock from Perimeter to go back into Poshman after I've restocked on ammo. It has something to the tune of 1.2 bill of ammo and drugs in there because I will just sit out in Poshman. Every time I see a target, I'm just chugging those pills. But yeah, it's just a really fun, really. It was originally after I started bringing it to Poshfin, we used it as a way to break the bubble camps because when the gates, I believe it was just after the gates had fully opened, Stribog Clade, Kybernuts Clade, the blue triangle were staging out of Wershoda, and they had both sides like lots and lots of bubbles, like a pyramid. And we just decided, how do we get through there to get intel? And the Panther, it's insanely fast, insanely agile. It was just our scout of choice, which sounds really weird, but it worked. And then I built on top of it, and every time I get caught, miraculously I got out, so I spent more money on it. And I've been caught a lot of times, but I've still not died. So it's tad expensive now.
Fair enough. But to bring this all back, you're obviously a very clever dude and a very talented and smart guy. But like, so on the CSM, having you on the CSM, on the one hand, like having somebody like you would be incredibly useful because there's a lot of insight and probably pretty unique insight that you can bring to the CSM, maybe bring something to CCP's attention that would behoove them earlier than everybody else would. Like, you know, a lot of the times the feedback is stuff that probably could be predicted, or, you know, they could ask any old person or just check the podcasts to get a feel for things. But, you know, you obviously have the perspective that most people don't, right? Like when people were feeling one way about Pochfin, you were feeling the other. And so that means that you bring a certain insight. But at the other hand, there's a risk where, you know, you have shown your willingness to take advantage of things and have fun and like dunk other people and use things to your advantage. Can you convince me that having you on the CSM will turn you onto our side for you know, to make a better Eve and not just to be used by yourself for your own advantage?
The main thing I would say is the main. So I'm not primarily for my campaign as a Poshfin. I don't want to only be a Poshfin voice. The main thing I'm campaigning on right now is, like, not to mince words, Eve is at its probably worst point it's been in a long time. The trust in CCP and the CSM is zero. Like, I don't think anyone would disagree with that. Like, cautious optimism maybe after FanFest, but even then, the communication they had after trying to hype it up to justify the sub price increase, like, it's non-existent. So I want to.
Yeah, even the White Knights have become Grey Knights. You know, we're like,
pretty much. So I've done pretty much everything I want to do, and I'm still doing what I want to do. The CSM thing is an aside to allow me to continue doing that in the form that Eve will still be going for the next, you know, few years, next decade, until I'm a pensioner. Like, hopefully in the best idea, the best sense of that. I think CSM, on the face of it, looking at what CSM can be privy to, I think there needs to be a lot more controls. I don't know if there are controls. I assume there are. That if any CSM is using insider information, they should be blacklisted from the game. Like, if you can prove it, they should be fucking gone forever.
Yeah, they tried that once. It didn't work out.
Well, I believe I believe that's as Brisk you were talking
about.
No,
but there have been other actual examples of this where I don't believe that they've been completely banned from the game, just removed from the CSM. So there is that.
Oh, if they've been proven to actively fuck with Eve when they're in a position of, you know, perceived power. Well, it is power really, because you're getting the information. Not only should you be banned from the, like, kicked off the CCP, just ban all your accounts. Fuck those people. They're not interested in the health of the game. They're interested.
And I don't remember what exactly happened. To be clear, they might have. I just don't.
Yeah, I believe an investigation for Brisk specifically. I believe there was an investigation, and they said that it didn't actually happen.
Correct.
Like, I wasn't around back then, so I'm not going to comment on that. If he has done that, like, he should be gone from the game completely.
No.
There should be no what would you say, no leniency in that. The CSM should be trusted because it is elected by the people, by the players, to steer Eve in a way that keeps it healthy, to not be like, say, Serenity, where people are being milked and there's that new auto fly feature and auto fire feature and things like that.
Right. And I agree with you. So why can I trust you?
I don't know, because I'm the only one campaigning for it.
You were definitely not the only one campaigning for it.
Am I not?
I mean, like the idea of like I'm campaigning for
part?
CSM reform as a CSM candidate, like that's a very common thing. So like, but like that doesn't tell me why I can trust you. Why? How do I know that you have our best interest when you go and do stuff for go and be on the CSM?
I believe quite a lot of faith would be involved because I've never been elected before, and my history has shown that I will do what it takes to do what I want. But what I want to do is I want Eve to continue as a healthy. I want it to go into the next decade to be a game that is not, when someone hears about it, saying, "Oh, that game's not doing very well," or it needs its reputation back. The trust in CCP needs to come back, and the CSM. And in order to do that, I think there needs to be someone who's in there whose primary thought is, how is this going to be communicated? How is this going to affect the perception of the game? And things like that. And for example, a good thing that the CSM did last time was the open letter in protest against the Prospector Pack, which...
Retriever. Oh, yeah, no, it was called the Prospector Pack.
Yes.
That's right. That was the other thing I didn't like about it.
Yeah. So that was a great way to funnel, not only to show CSM doesn't agree with it, but also to funnel all player sentiment through that open letter to show CCP, like, we mean business. No one likes this. Get rid of it.
Right.
The one thing I disagreed with there was no one was willing to stand down and resign and protest. If CCP is doing something that I believe that could potentially kill the game, I would resign. I would just say, I'm resigning. This is why. And I will say everything that just short of the NDA.
Right.
Simply because that's why I'm doing it. I'm not going through, taking the time to campaign my ideas when normally I've been quite a reserved, in a small community, as it were. I've never really put myself out there because it never interested me. Now it is because I believe that something needs to be done.
Yeah. And to your credit, as I said before, like even when you were doing the seagulling and stuff, you were not only working with CCP about it and actually legitimately trying to get the problem fixed, even as you used it, or more importantly, I guess you could even say experimented with it. But, you forced your way on my show. You made sure, like, you weren't secretive about it at all. You wanted everyone to understand what was going on.
We've always been straight up with people, even when we were trolling the locals at the time. When we had spies in there just to make it easier for us, we wouldn't use those spies to actively fuck them. We'd just say, "Oh yeah, by the way, we have spies. We know what you're on about."
Right.
We would just say that. We were completely upfront with everyone.
So and then I look at it like the way I presented the question to you is almost like, okay, well, you're a hacker. How do I know if you're a white hat hacker or a black hat hacker, right? Like that's a different way of putting it. And like the answer is that you have historical evidence of being a white hat hacker when it comes to like the development of the game. And I think that that's a very fair assessment and a good one.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say for that is, if you don't trust me, don't vote for me, but vote.
Absolutely.
If there are other candidates on there, I've not really come out and said who I'm going to support yet. I will at some point, but there are a lot of good candidates on there that if you feel that you agree with what they're saying and you think they're going to be a net benefit for CSM and CCP and Eve in a way that's not going to, not necessarily backfire, but not going to be actively unhealthy behind the scenes, vote for them.
Right.
I think the CSM is a period where it's the least amount of incumbents. I think we have Arcia, who was she was brought in at
the last minute.
Yeah, she was brought in the last minute because
ProGod.
Someone left. Yeah, ProGod left.
He went skiing.
I'm not going to comment on that. But so it's Arcia, Brisk, and was it Kenneth is running again.
Yes.
But there's only
like
three incumbents.
a
And
fair
10
chunk of
slots.
them can't run again. That's why. This is the first year that people can't run.
So I'd say this is the best time to vote for people that you want to get in. Like, there's always going to be blocks of voting. Like, I know I'm on a few ballots, not null block ballots. I'm on a few ballots here and there. Like, so people saying, yeah, we're going to tell our people to vote for you. I don't think you should vote for a ballot unless you trust the person saying, you know, we think these are going to be healthy for the game. If you trust the person saying it, yeah, vote for them. But otherwise, I would just say vote. Look into the candidates, find the people you like, and vote for them.
Watch some interviews.
Yeah, on Ashtarothi's YouTube.
So that sounds like a great idea. No, but I'm running low on time, but I do want to circle back. You obviously have a strong passion for Pochvin. Pochvin has been probably one of the most maligned areas of space since it's come out. I mean, everything from accusations of no content to people complaining about, the fact that there's lockout, then the fact that lockouts aren't removed, and the structures and drama and killing their own structures, and why did we need Pochvin anyways? And god damn it, just bring me back Niarja. And now there's all these accusations of like the blue triangle. I've heard that like the nullsec people have solved it or whatever. So like, how do you feel? Yeah, well then you tell me, like, what is the state of Pochvin right now, and what do you see needs to happen?
Right now, I think Pochvin, like, on a pure Eve level, from the universe level, even for someone invested in Pochvin as I am, I think right now Pochvin has been invested to more than any other place, which sounds weird coming from a Pochvin candidate. It is in a very reasonably healthy state in that, yes, there is a blue triangle. There's Horde, Fraternity, and they have like, yeah, from what I've seen, they have like a blue triangle going, and Bandalogs are in there. But we also have YellowCladKing now, who basically once a previous CSM candidate, Maldavius, had left. They went through from, I would say, the dark times through Maldavius. They basically almost died and had nothing. And they've come through this redemption arc, and now they are like grizzled PvPers, and they will take any fight that you throw at them within reason. But still, so they have like it's them purple helmeted warriors and that form the core of their fleets, and they will go out and trash these the blue triangle. We will do it as well. Castle Kickers, my corp, is basically not blue to anyone. We will shoot absolutely anyone, and they know that, but they also respect us for when we say, should we group together and shoot these guys or that guy. So we're always out with Rote Capel, Volta, sometimes with Gorenclade. One of our guys joined Gorenclade recently. We're quite happy about that. But yeah, so it is in a very healthy spot. It could get to a point where it's like Incursions, where no one loses anything, and the MER is at the top of making trillions and trillions of ISK. But right now, it's a good spot. It's making a lot of money, but people are fighting for it.
It's also blowing up a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. We are, I think, top 3. We were at the top 3 of regions, of all regions in space on ships destroyed at one point. I think we've always been around top 4, top 5 for quite a long time. And that is consistent. No matter how much people try to just going off Horde, how they do it. They like originally tried to blob the hell out of everyone. Then they tried different small fleets that had to disengage, and it kind of works for them. But on the flip side, a lot of their members are saying, well, we're not making quite a lot of money here, and we're being told to run away. So a lot of them will have jumped ship and gone to other places and had fun. And that's quite healthy. I think giving people a reason to question why they're in the group that they're in and giving them the option to go elsewhere and discover something else about Eve is just a great, healthy state to have. And while I'm apprehensive to change that, it needs to be monitored just in case it gets out of hand. There's a lot of quality of life fixtures I do want to put through to Pochvin. I think the home systems right now offer absolutely nothing, but there is a great potential content driver there. There's 3 gates in each home system. One is deactivated currently, so let's say 2 gates, they're both on the same grid, and there is a big, massive structure there that could be used as a station, which could provide some sort of advantage, but you have to defend it. I think that would be a great idea. That's something I would like to push for. I'm not certain it would ever go through, but I'm confident I could push the idea and annoy CCP enough until they say, fine, we'll look into it. But those are certain things I want to put into Poshman. That's just not going to be my primary goal on the CSM.
Right. So speaking of that, and trying out other areas of space and all that stuff, as I'm kind of coming to an end, I do want to open it up, though. Are you planning on just being the Pochfin candidate, or do you feel like you can represent other aspects? Like, why would a high secker or an industrialist or a null secker or a faction warfare player, why would they feel like they might want to put you on their ballot?
I think the healthiest way that the CSM can operate is if all CSM candidates that are elected have an open door policy from anyone in the game. Because if a high-sec candidate asks me a question, I'm going to view that question from the lens of a Poshfin player, as a Panther enjoyer, as someone who enjoys Black Ops or Interceptors. But say they all should go to, for example, Brisk is an incumbent, so let's use him. He is on a leadership level. He does a lot of propaganda and I assume a lot of backstabbing spy type stuff. He also enjoys battleships and big fleet fights. He's got a different lens. I think there should be, the CSM would be at best where everyone can be approachable, and that's something I want to also foster within the CSM. I think a lot of people might be annoyed by me. I think at the end, let's say I do get elected, I think by the end of it, if the rest of CCP and the CSM are sick of me, then I've done a good job.
All right. Well, that's a good way to put it, I guess. All right. Well, I think that puts us pretty close to you having 10 minutes. So,
God, I've not even prepared a speech.
Oh man, is there anything? But no, is there anything? I mean, like really, I've focused on very, very few things. So, is there anything else that like I may have missed, or anything you want to focus on?
The one thing I wanted to talk about, and this kind of ties into trusting CCP more, is a big, aside from communication, there's a big issue in value for money right now in EVE. And I can understand, I'm speaking specifically about the hike in the prices.
Right.
And we all understand at some level why they did it, because gas and electricity rates right now are going absolutely through the roof. I know firsthand, I've just sorted for the company I work for now, their gas and electricity prices, they've just skyrocketed to the point where I had to almost beg and plead one of the directors, like, don't go on a variable rate, because even though it's tripled, it will triple again. So that, and EVE has got a lot of servers, use up a lot of electricity. They're in London, so that's going to cost them a lot of money. They also want to expand. They have staff in Shanghai and London, extra costs there. Then they've lost, in effect, the entire Russian and Ukrainian player base due to the Ukrainian war, which is not going to fix itself anytime soon. So sure, they're going to have a knee-jerk reaction, like, we've lost all this this cash flow. How are we going to get it back? And I disagree with the way they've done it. I think it's almost backwards, because they've invested so much into the new player experience right now that some people will come in like, oh yeah, this is a beautiful game. The new MPE is great, flying the Astero from the exploding station and the new mining section. And I hope they expand on that, because if EVE's going to survive long term, it needs more players. It also needs to retain previous players. But then when those new players go to the sub, they're going to say, oh yeah, I'll try out Omega for a month. $20? Nah. They're just going to leave. Because everything else is cheaper. Why would they do that? Because they're not... Go on, sorry.
What do you think is the most value-added way that CCP can add, or the most efficient way or effective way that CCP could add value?
The primary way to add value right now, not to have put up that price. The question is, how do they get the cash flow elsewhere? There is a resource that players have been begging for years. Extra customization, skins, station skins, more dress-up stuff, anything like that. CCP should go down the way of the company that poaches all their devs, Riot Games, and just just spam the ever-living shit out of skins. They could be recolors, they could be amazing ones like the YC121 skins. I actually have some examples of stuff that Tamba has made for me today, as an example. I'll link them in a second. And just sell them for Plex. If enough people buy them, that's going to be a passive income for a long time. And if you do, you could also do things like, for example, on Caldari side, I'm quite particular to the Kalarkiota ships, like the Flycatcher. I like the red stripes and the black. Why can't I have a skin for all of those ship lines, and maybe even on other hulls? Just sell the stuff. People don't have to engage in it. There could also be an option for people that don't like it to turn it off.
Caldari do have the best skins that we don't get to have on anything, right? Both Kalarkiota and Ishikone skins are just gorgeous.
Yes,
but you can't get them on anything.
The commander skins, especially like the ones that just came out for the FanFest attendees. Oh, they're just so nice.
I mean, like, just of the default corporations, like of all the default corporations, the Caldaris have both the best looking and you can't get them on anything.
Yeah,
it frustrates me. Absolutely.
I'm also going to link you to. So I've just linked you two things. If you want to bring them up, this is two examples. These were made in the space of 2 hours. This was using the Paladin YC121 skin, and Tamba has using the tool that he uses, and he does some great work, and I love him for it. Makes these just beautiful skins that you would imagine having a redeemer that decloaks next to you, and it's like that black and gold. Maybe you could turn the banners off if you don't like them, but I think that just looks brilliant. Like, just imagine all the skins that Tamba has done. All of those, from what I understand, what he was telling me, are compatible with the game right now. All he needs to do is send them to CCP. They would need to process, I think, for their new level of detail system.
Yeah.
And then create the items, and then just pump them out. Like, that is a low-ish investment cost, and the potential upside for this, in terms of increased revenue, in my eyes, and obviously I don't know full their like how their sales are split, but they're saying, I think they're making quite a lot from optional purchases. It would also increase the buying strength of Plex. More people would buy it and use it. So the whales that, well, it's unfair to say whales, but the people that sell Plex for ISK in game, so they can whelp expensive ships, things like that.
The arcade players.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, you could say that.
That's how it's described to me. I put in my quarter and I play my game. That's how what has been described to me. But the thing is that, like, when I think it was Paragon, right? Talked about how skins can only stretch so far when it comes to increasing monetization. There's a bit of hold on. Because I
feel strongly about this.
That raised a red flag in my mind too. However, once we got to FanFest, I had a different theory, which is that if they're going to come out with heraldry, doesn't that devalue skins a little bit, right? Like, why would I pay Plex for a skin if I can pay, build some caracals and turn it in for some Interbus points in order to get Snake Hat? Right? Like, who gives a shit what my skin is at that point?
It can be on top of that. Imagine that Abaddon you've got on screen with, say, a slithering snake going on top of it that's old. You can combine them together.
Right, you can, but my point is...
Customization has no limits as far as I'm concerned.
You're right, but my point is that given the fact that they're working on Interbus points as a separate thing, and they are actually using it for monetization in a weird way, because, like, they are likely going to take those ships to then sell for money, but that's much less proven potentially as a mechanism. But I feel like their concern might be that, like, yes, they get this awesome new feature to be able to draw us into what they want us to do, but at the same time they do sacrifice, even though you can use both, they've sacrificed a little bit of the value of paying for premium skins.
In what way?
Well, now there's an alternative option, right? I don't know if I would have gotten...
They are an add-on system instead of skins themselves. They are on top of the skins.
But how many people will choose to not buy a premium skin because they could get a normal skin and some inner bus things, right? Like I may not buy the Interstellar Convergence skin if there's just a normal event skin that you can buy as a drop, and I can put my heraldry on it. You know what I'm saying?
From what I understand, the heraldry is you spend the bus points for that ship, and also they're unlocked by things like killer marks. Those things are temporary, not permanent. So when you lose that ship, you will lose that. For the most part, from what I understand, you will lose those things. The skin is something you pay on the side, and you have that skin. And you could also do other things like services. Someone, I can't remember who it was, I think it was Dr. Spodgermain. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. Said if people are bored of the skins, why not pay them a fee so they can take the skin off and then sell back on the market? That's just an extra way of monetizing this that isn't toxic and going to immediately annoy the player base. The only issue I find there is now that they're allowing skins to be redeemed on the login queue, you can't really. I don't think it's fair to allow people to extract a rare skin they found and then sell it.
Well,
I'm not entirely convinced on that. That's just the base thought.
Well, you could hold on. You could actually meet halfway, right? Because the ones that get dropped in the login rewards, by definition, cannot be the ones that were purchased. So you could make it so that premium skins that have been purchased by Plex, can be extracted, but not event skins that are earned through in-game effort. That makes. I mean, that would track. That would actually. Yeah. You know, I've hated the idea of extracting skins, but that's the first time that I've been like, maybe.
Apparently it was Fonsui had the idea.
Fonsui has been promoting this for quite some time.
And I believe I argued with you on this quite a lot, because initially I was against the idea. I was like, it's going to undervalue, because I was a little biased because I had some expensive skins, and then like you talked me around to it. But it's a lot. It's going to annoy the player base. The people that don't like it are going to be annoyed a lot less at that than let's sell ships that are terribly fit directly to new players that will lose it straight away. They'll get pissed off and leave the game because they spent $15 on a ship that dies to an Ibis with an autocannon.
Well, they're doing it because they have metrics and proof that it does the opposite. Like, people that buy those packs do not only are they happy with their purchase, but they're more likely to stay retained into the game. Like, they wouldn't do it otherwise.
They say that their metrics are supporting that. However, believe it was Innominate and Merkel-chan were saying that their metrics that they've been told are just flat out.
But that's consistent with everything that we know about microtransactions from the gaming industry. Like
true.
I mean,
true. And to be fair to them, they are working towards that. Only things that have already interacted with the economy, they have been built.
Yeah, we've built it and turned them in. Yeah. I do like the idea that it's diegetic, right? Like yes. It's an in-game effort to make these things happen.
Yes, so that's an example of, if they waited for that to happen, I think the reaction to the Prospector pack would have been way, way lower. People were like it's really stupid that these fits are terrible, but okay, it's not antithetical to what Eve is as a living universe.
Right. I actually was really interested because I presented it to a lot of people in like the worst possible light. You know, like, oh my God, this is their way of selling ship skins. You don't, and you know what? Everybody I've ever encountered with it, like, just like talking about it. There's been a few people in like chats and stuff, but like, just when I'm asking people about it, everybody's fine with it. They think, oh, well, yeah, that solves the problem. You've made sure that people build it. And at the same time, you make it so that people can't literally make a money, like RMT, because, actual play to earn is a bad thing. But this is, we don't have enough time to even jump into that. But before we do wrap up, though, do you have anything else that you want to touch on before we go?
I wanted to quickly go back to, first of all, you said that their metrics were saying that skins aren't enough like income, that they're not doing it. I believe they're not making enough income because they're not investing into the skins. They're only putting out a few, and the ones that like, say, the Interstellar Convergence skins, the Doctor Who event. I didn't like the fact that the event had nothing to do with the Eve universe, but that aside, those skins were really nice, and they made no money from them, really, did they? Like, if they had skins of that quality, or the YC121's qualities, and they were available on every ship, so you could always have it on the ship you want, then suddenly I think that's gone past the critical mass to where they're going to start making the money. And then things like sub increases can either be reversed in a perfect world, probably not going to happen, but we can hope, because EVE is now quite expensive to play. I personally think it's worth it, but it's down to every single player to make that decision. Like, I'm not here to make that decision for you. Like, It's your money. It's your game. It's your money.
I would say. Sorry.
Go on.
I was just going to say that I would agree that, like, in general, CCP has this tendency to have a really good idea, but fail to put in enough effort, or fail to get it across the finish line enough for it to actually realize its full potential. And then they look at it and go, oh, it wasn't successful, and then not commit any more energy into it.
That's where the CSM need to push. Just
exactly.
Keep pushing. Just say, don't give up now. Don't, like, you've invested halfway. Like, sunken cost fallacy aside, keep going and be committed to it. Be proud of what you're doing, and the players will reflect your pride in how they respond to it. That's something the CSM definitely needs to do.
And to bring this home, if I could, I think that is one of the things that makes you a really good candidate, because, like, it's too easy for us to be negative, right? Like, that CSM letter was great, but ultimately it's saying, don't do this. It's really easy it's honestly not useful feedback for the CSM to just be like, don't do that. But
I could see in a sense that if the CSM was saying, no, you're not allowed to make money this way. And eventually CCP will be like, well, how the fuck do we?
Yeah, why would CCP listen to that? Like, that's not... But you, like, let's look at Pochfin, right? When everybody else didn't see any value in it, you were like, no. But this is the value in it. You saw things in it and were able to help people see things in it and the potential in it. And maybe, just maybe, that's what we've been missing. Maybe what we've been trying to do is put, like, shackles on CCP through the CSM. But what we really need to do is have people on the CSM that can be like, yes, that right there, that's the thing. You need to do that. Somebody who can pull out those gems and be like, that's what you need to commit to.
And on top of that, even if CCP, because a lot of what the CSM is from talks that have happened and from notes is CCP shows that CSM a thing, CSM comments on it, CCP then takes those notes elsewhere to discuss. It should not be that. CCP brings a thing, the CSM also brings things, and they drill it into CCP's heads that these are ideas that should be discussed. CCP then goes away with a lot more information and then comes back on a long back and forth. I don't think the CSM should be a prestigious title. Like, I shouldn't be in a position where I can brag because, I got on CSM, voted for me, therefore I'm popular and I can get votes for it again. It should be a very, very efficient, knowledgeable focus group that has a lot more intimacy with the game than the developers.
Well, that sounds like a very good analysis of what CSM could be, should be, perhaps. It's a very good reason to vote for you. Pochfin is an incredibly important place. Emergent gameplay is incredibly important. And in this world in which, like, every change has a detractor, because for everything that's good for somebody, it's bad for another. We need people who are able to cut through the bullshit and, like, stay true to what EVE really is and find those kernels of value out there. So to that end, I think that you would be a very good person to be on the CSM. I look forward to it. And something tells me that either way, you will continue to influence things in your own ways, however necessary. It's been a delight to talk to you once again. Need to have you on again outside of this context soon enough. Probably after the cycle's over.
Invite me whenever, dude. I'm up to.
It's definitely on me.
I'm up to go back to my, as Fonsui says, Drake is much more convincing when he isn't trolling. I can come back and troll if you want me to. I can be an asshole if you want me to.
Well, before we get there, I think I'm going to wrap this up. So thank you very much. This has been the EVE Universe show's coverage of the CSM 17 elections. And thank you on my behalf, Ashtarothi, the voice of New Eden, and my guest, Drake, Iddon. I don't know why I just wait till the last second to try to get it right. No,
try IDUN.
No, I can figure it out. But the problem is that like having not thought about it already and then just trying to hit the word as I'm mid sentence, that's the problem because it takes me just a half of a second to process it. Any rate, with my good buddy Drake here, thank you guys, thank you guys for watching. And if you're watching this on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know if you have any questions for Drake. You can post it there or look down below for the links to all of Drake's information, his CSM posts, etc. If you have any questions, if they have questions for you, do they reach out to you via your forum posts or?
I'm most active. I'm active in Eve and on the forums. I do work long hours because I'm trying to make an impression at work, so they continue hiring me. I'm in the very early stage of that, but. I do have some leeway. I can reply on the forums if I get the chance to, if I'm not bogged down with work. I also log in first thing in the morning to Eve, check mails, things like that, because there's always someone talking just to chat with while I'm having breakfast. I'm always open.
Excellent.
Unless I'm asleep. So if I'm asleep, maybe you're unfortunate there.
I will also say that Drake is one of those candidates that if you do believe in him, you're going to want to put him as high up as possible because he's not probably going to be a major block candidate. And the worst thing that can happen is having a strong candidate that gets knocked out because they don't have enough number 1 votes. And then by the time that the votes that they would have gets to them, they're already out. So if you do believe in Drake, you should probably put him pretty high up on your list, as high as you feel is comfortable. But either way, make sure to go out there and vote because that's what's really important. And again, on behalf of Ashtarothi and Drake, we have been, this has been the CSM 17 coverage. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, I'll see you in space.